The Ogoni community remains divided over the federal government's plan to restart oil extraction, halted since 1993. At a congress in Bori, leaders including Professor Don Baridam and Archbishop Ignatius Kate backed ongoing talks with the government, emphasizing inclusive dialogue for a lasting resolution. However, some youths disrupted the meeting, protesting the planned resumption. Environmental groups also opposed the move, citing inadequate cleanup efforts and threats to human rights. With President Bola Tinubu appointing National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu to facilitate talks, the debate continues, weighing economic benefits against environmental and social concerns. Well, joining us now for more insight is Ledum Mitee, former president of the Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.
Good afternoon.
So let's start, with the president's decision to appoint Nuhu Ribadu to lead the reconciliation team in Ogoniland. What are the necessary steps that you feel must be taken for peace to be restored to the region?
Well, let me say that what has happened was that the president invited some Ogoni leaders, including myself and several others, to Abuja. And at that meeting, the president asked us to go and have wide consultations at home for the purposes of getting an Ogoni position. A dialogue process was now supposed to be pioneered by the National Security Advisor, and that dialogue process has started. So consultations have started in earnest, and last Saturday it was Congress to inform the people of the outcome of that delegation. And the next steps will now be to go to town hall meetings in each local government for the purposes of harvesting views of each and every segment of the Ogoni situation. And that's what we've done. And I think it was quite a great idea that, and we must applaud the president for embarking on this dialogue.
And we do know that there have been historical grievances within the area. What's it going to take for leaders to put these grievances aside? Does time heal the wounds?
Well, time is an important healer of wounds. But for the Ogoni people, the whole idea of people coming around to say that we now have to engage ourselves, I think one of the most important things that has happened, and for which we must applaud this government, is to say we are opting for a dialogue to engage communities. Part of the things that some of us have said over the years is that government must do things to show that those who opt for non-violent agitations should be seen to have been recognized, and this is quite a brilliant step forward. And the government has followed. The delegation said, look, because of lack of trust, following the lack of sincerity perceived by the people by past administrations, that they should do some confidence-building measures. And the government has responded swiftly and positively to those requests of confidence-building measures, including signing into bill of a university for environmental technology, fast-forwarding the completion of the east-west route that passes through Ogoni. And we must say again, that is not just strictly an Ogoni project, because those going to Akwa Ibom pass through there, those going to Pobo, Okrika, and in fact, the petrochemical, the refinery, first and second Portugal refinery, all use that route. And then they've also said they are also responded positively to the issue of trying to some affirmative action to employ some Ogonis in some federal institutions, as well as some infrastructural interventions. So some of these are confidence-building measures, which now will now get to the main issue of letting our people have a conversation which has started, and every bit of the Ogoni society will be captured in this conversation.
Now, some concerned civil society organizations have rejected planned resumption of oil extraction while demanding for $1 trillion to be earmarked for immediate cleanup of the Niger Delta and compensation for loss of livelihood. Now, is this a reasonable demand in your opinion?
Well, in every negotiation, people make demands, and it is for the end of the day, the conversations will agree on something that both sides feel is reasonable. I have been in parts of these sort of conversations before, and I can tell you on a lighter note that when I was chairman of the Niger Delta Technical Committee, we also tried to harvest views of Niger Deltans on what should do to bring about peace. And I remember some people were saying, look, I know the answer to the Niger Delta crisis. All I wanted is that they should pay them X amount of billions of dollars for them to tell us the answer. So that's still a view. Whatever view people put on the table is a view, but the conversation will agree on something. But what I do not think this conversation or any conversation should do is that no person should put out there what he calls preconditions before a conversation. A conversation should be to resolve an issue, and you don't say this is what must be done. And I think even civil society organizations should also respect Ogoni people to some extent of knowing that we also know what we want. You don't think that you represent us, you know how the shoe pins by all of us. We appreciate the support we've gotten from civil society organizations, but let us have an Ogoni conversation first amongst ourselves, and then we can also ask for support from our friends.
Are there any conversations about the exoneration of Ken Saro-Wiwa and the Ogoni Five? Is this part of the discussions that are being had?
Well, the conversation will be holistic. And I can even say that even some bit of that conversation has even started. That's what I can say on national TV. So all part of this conversation must be there to capture our own people within ourselves, what is happening. So nothing is off the table in the conversation. But what is more important is for us to embrace an opportunity to have a conversation. If you embark on a struggle, if you embark, especially a non-violent struggle, you should be able to say, I want to talk to resolve the issue. You do not run away from an opportunity to talk and only to say, do you think the problems do not get solved in that way. I think it was one General Lebed many years ago in the Chechen War who said that every war ends in a conversation. So why should we fight first before you have a conversation?
It seems that we are having a bit of a technical problem. We will resume the conversation with Ledum Mitee, the former president of the for the survival of the Ogoni people, right after this break. Do stay with us. And we're back. Thank you so much for staying with us. We still have Ledum Mitee, the former president of the movement for the survival of Ogoni people. Thank you so much for being patient with us. We were discussing what it's going to take for exploration of oil in the Ogoni province. And what do you think would be the pros and the cons of such an action?
Well, what it will take is the conversation with the people which has started. The Ogoni people will be able to put on the table those concerns that we have. Our experiences in the past, as you know, has not been the best. So at the end of the day, we will be able to get some assurances that there will not be a repeat of what has happened before. And those assurances will guide the process. But I think that everything will be on the table for this conversation. What is more important is that let the internal conversation amongst ourselves first happen and should be supported. And I'm happy that there was enthusiastic overall support for a conversation that has started. And I must thank the government for opting for a dialogue process.
Now, I'd like us to talk a bit about HYPREP, the hydrocarbon pollution remediation project. You know, they say that a significant number of projects will be completed this year. Projects like soil and groundwater remediation, shoreline cleanup, mangrove restoration. There will be the Ogoni Specialist Hospital, and the likes. I'm wondering how optimistic you are, that all these promises will be fulfilled this year, 2025. And also, shouldn't we see all these projects already in place before we start talking of, restarting oil exploration in Ogoniland?
Well, I'm talking about high prep and what is going on. My view of this conversation, and these clearly are my personal views, is that even the whole performance of that cleanup should be part of the conversations we should have. Is there anything that lessons we have learned? Is there everything that they say they've done is what they have done? It should be part of the conversation so that if there are things that we need to correct, we correct right away. But as I said, I am not part of those who feel that we need to put preconditions for a conversation. That conversation is what is key. And the conversation should lead to an outcome, a resolution of an outcome and the way forward. I do not want to start prejudging what that outcome will be. But I'm open-minded, and I'm sure most of the people are also open-minded, that will put all that, including performance of IPREP, in this conversation.
And seeing how things have gone, historically speaking, within Ogoniland and the dredging of oil, in your opinion, is this going to be a repeat, or what things could be done to change the trajectory of degradation of the environment and the upset people in the land, seeing as how these things usually roll out when there is dredging for oil in these communities?
Clearly, one of the things which has been which has been the forefront of our agitation has been that fact that the practices used by the oil companies in the extraction of oil in Ogoni and other parts of the Niger Delta has been below standards. And I'm not sure that any person who is serious and honest will want a repeat of that sort of situation. So I think that this is the time to now reset and say, wait a minute, we've passed through the areas where our environment was degraded, and we think that going ahead, there are best practices other parts of the world where oil itself was extracted, and it does not do such damage to the environment. Why can't we adopt those standards? These are the sort of things I would like to see. I would also like to see that at the end of the day, we are able to now see what will happen in case some of these practices happen. And I can tell you that there are also, certain things even within some past reports and recommendations that even can be adopted and those sort of a thing. For instance, I was chairman of the Niger Delta Technical Committee, and one of the reports we made about the environmental degradation is that companies will now have to post an insurance bond to say that if there is any spillage, we don't need to go into litigation with us. We call on the insurance company to bring money for a proper cleanup without going through all these hassles of what has been going on. So I believe that the environment will be key in the resolution and how the practices of the companies that eventually, if that is what is eventually agreed, will do and perform to make our people happy. And then by itself set a model, because the Ogoni issue has acquired a whole lot of profound national and international attention. And therefore, how it is resolved will also have impact on how other people are being treated and other environments are being treated. And that's why it was also good that the signing into law of the environmental technology will be able to now imbue into the system maybe a body of knowledge that should be able to guide the process.
Now, I'm wondering how involved, the local communities are in this dialogue that you're talking about, those that were directly affected, those that lost their businesses, their health, those that were displaced. How involved are they in this negotiation process? Or is it just, between the federal government and the elites in the area?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I will not be involved if it were something to just capture elites' view. I come from a community that produces 65 to 70% of the oil in Ogoni. And as I speak, even by the weekend, the communities were meeting about what is that their community's position. at the stage where we finish to inform the people of the visit to Abuja, the thing now goes to town hall meetings by local government. And one of the things I can tell you is that in one of the local government, at least my local government, they are already saying that communities should come with community positions, and that the conversation at the local government-wide level should have the youth leader of each community, the women leader in each community, the CDC chairman in each community, and the traditional institution from the community. And they should first be able to articulate this within themselves. The students are meeting. Several other groups are meeting. So it is to harvest these views into a holistic position that will be, as I said, and I repeat, if this were to say an elitist thing, I would not be part of it. But because I think it captures the grassroots in a manner that tells me that it will now involve the voices of even those who otherwise would not have been heard. Those who were at that Congress will find out women first occupied the whole hall themselves. And these are women from villages who came by themselves. No one paid their transport and they came there. So people want to embrace the situation in a manner not, I mean, the Ogonis in terms of grassroots mobilization, I think we have, we've discharged that creditably in the days of MOSOP.
So one last time, just before we let you go, for those critics of the resumption of exploration of oil in Ogoniland, is this going to bring more hope or more harm?
Well, it depends on what the outcome of such a conversation leads to. If it is business as usual, of course, that is not something that any person will want to happen. But at the end of the day, as I said, you do not expect that every person will just say this is what is going to happen. And I have also said, and I've talked to some of my colleagues, those who have been in the civil society organizations, that please give our people also an opportunity to talk amongst themselves. And don't think that you know more than what it is, or that your own Panadol will cure our own headache. It might not be. It's not one size fits all. So clearly, we will involve our friends, and we will involve experts who can guide us on what has happened and take the best practices forward. More importantly is that the conversation is off the line, and there is every evidence that convinces me that this time around is going to be different. I have been involved in talking with some past administrations, and I can tell you the difference between what I saw before and what is happening now. So, contrary to most people, what is in the public domain, one of the reasons that has made this not to move forward has not been so much about Ogoni people. It has even been the politics amongst players in Abuja, those who want to capture Ogoni oil, those who want to be the people who drill, and all that, has been more of the politics that has stalled these conversations. But this time around, I'm not sure that that is what have manifested itself. And that's why we think that this is something we should give it a good shot.
Now, you talked about a meeting that held over the weekend, I think in Bori, River State. And we understand that even though the meeting held, that a lot of youth were dissatisfied. There are media reports that the VIPs, left in less than an hour, and then the youths became angry because the whole meeting was poorly organized. They were not given a chance to talk. They are wondering, why the discussions did not start from the kingdoms or the local governments before calling for an enlarged, Congress to harmonize the views. Can you please react to that?
Well, what happened is that the conversation on a Congress, any person who knows about an Ogoni Congress, it is a platform to tell people, pass information to the people. And after the Congress had ended, a few people went there and tried, for whatever reasons, tried to do something. By that time, people have already left all the place. Now, if someone says that perhaps they thought it was an occasion for the conversation, that was not an occasion for that. The real conversation goes back to the villages and then comes back up. But people must be told, we went to Abuja, and this is what the president told us, and this is the outcome of that. We should go home and consult. And that is the information. At that sort of situation, we had over 5,000 people in that place. At first, they wanted to stay in a hall, and it was oversubscribed. And people have to move in. And even all that was still managed fantastically well. So if at the end of the day, some people have, the impression that it was supposed to be a place where people would talk. Okay, who will talk? How do you manage what views? And how do you harvest the views? This was an information gathering, and the information has passed. And as I speak to you, even the outcome of that and the speech by the facilitators have been circulated to each village, to every traditional ruler, so that they will tell people this is what happened. The next stage is also captured what will be done. There might be people, one or two people who have selfish economic interests who, for one reason or the other, might say certain things, but that's not what I'm going to say on national TV. But clearly, I believe that the overwhelming support of the Ogoni people is behind this dialogue process.
Well, very well said, and we appreciate you joining us this afternoon, Ledum Mitee, former president of the Movement of the Survival of Ogoni People. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.